Easy.
Yes? Yes?
Safe travels. Not happening.
My vengeance will be paid in ash. This hate, this despair, oblivion burns within me. This world burns. Do you deny it? My shadow will cover this world once more. That's it. My vengeance will be paid in ash. This hate, this despair, oblivion burns within me. This world burns. Do you deny it? My shadow will cover this world once more. Pathetic. My vengeance will be paid in ash. Do you think my defeat changes anything? This world is already dead.
Yo, what is up, travelers? Second Survives here, and today I am sharing with you my build for the Falconer that I was playing during the community testing time period for the 1.0 update. I was lucky enough to be on the community testing program for the development period and help out with bug testing and whatnot, and got the pleasure of playing the Falconer a little bit. A bit of a sneak peek, if you will. So I took the time to record this video for release so that I could share a fresh build with you guys for the Falconer right away. So like I said, this is for a hardcore Falconer build using the Rogue class. My build here is, like I said, both me and the Falconer doing damage. I really wanted to play with the new explosive trap, so I chose to go explosive trap and use that as like my main, my character's main delivery system of damage. And then of course I just wanted to go with dive bomb and aerial assault as well, just so I could fully utilize, most of what the new skills the Falconer has to offer. I'm actually a little sad that I'm not using net, but with the Falcon and the traps, Acid Flask works really, really well to combine those together. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm throwing traps in order to proc the trap sprinkler, and I am using the increased mana cost to make it 100%, and I'm throwing 2 traps at a time. As you can see, I'm still only level 18 with my skills because I'm only level 68 right now, so I don't have the full 20 points yet. But if I did have an additional point, I would be throwing 3 traps. It's just really mana heavy, so during campaign and working into monoliths, you can't really do it until you have enough mana and you have enough mana regen to sustain the additional mana cost. But anyway, so explosive trap is how I deliver my main damage, and that's actually coming from the trebuchet, where I'm throwing acid flasks along with every single trap. So 2 acid flasks are being thrown for me by my traps, and then those are causing a ricochet effect to happen, which I just think thematically is very, very cool. And you just kind of have to get subtle sabotage just to reduce your mana cost. It's kind of a bummer. If you can find a way to reduce this or get rid of it entirely, fully welcome you to do that. But for me, I had to use this in order to make the mana work and whatnot. I might actually remove a point and see if that works, since I've kind of worked on my mana and mana regen. But obviously, you want to have more damage here. So this node is just to help with your mana cost. I really enjoy smoke traps down here, where you get Dust Shroud chance every time one of your traps hits. So this is very, very good. And then of course you can have this node, Umbral Saboteur, in order to increase your damage per Dust Shroud. So this is a very potent defensive, offensive combination to do for your traps. It just gives you a little bit more damage. And then Sky Signal, just because we are using the bird's abilities, we have increased cooldown recovery rate for that, which isn't necessarily necessary, but I just figured I'd get it since I'm going this way anyway. And this Sky Signal is really, really strong for scaling your minion or your Falcon damage. So then moving on to Falconry here, basically I just wanted to go over here and get Flask Satchel. And we don't need the point behind it because, or the node behind it, because we're not throwing Acid Flasks directly. So there's no sense in getting that. But basically this is going to scale with our damage and not minion damage. The Falcon does actually do surprising amount of damage, especially with its abilities, Dive Bomb and Falcon Strikes. Scaling with dexterity is really, really awesome. So this is a strong node to get. And then getting global damage, which is more global damage for the Falcon, is really strong as well. I don't think this applies to the Flask, but I could be wrong. But the Flask does a respectable amount of damage. And then coming down to Train Hunt, just so that it can get some increased crit chance from us, is pretty strong because we are trying to get as much crit and hit damage as possible. And then I think that Hunter's Spoils is pretty vital, especially early on. I would recommend getting this pretty quickly, like at least once you have 40 total attributes on your character, and that could be around level 25 to 35. Get this node because it is going to help with your mana sustain, which is this build's biggest problem when doing the campaign. And I'll talk about leveling a little bit later in this video. But if you need an exact order on how to pick these up, the build guide will have an exact order of how to pick these up, pick these nodes up. And going into Acid Flask, just getting it converted to fire and then getting as much hit damage and the extra crit from piercing debris is really important. Changing Armor Shred into Fire Res Shred is really important, and then using the last points just to get as much damage on it as possible. So it's a pretty basic tree for Acid Flask, and that's I think how you're going to do the most damage with it with this build. Arial Assault is going to be the traversal skill, but it's also a very, very strong clear skill. So with it, I really wanted to get this shaded wingspan, because whenever you use it with a rare enemy or a boss, it's going to create a shadow, a Falcon shadow, which will do damage over time via the Featherstorm here. It's not like a crazy amount of damage, but it definitely is going to be helpful with sustaining some damage for bosses. Actually, during boss fight it is pretty good to use. But the main reason we want this is because this is a huge mana refresh, especially during the campaign. As soon as you get Arial Assault, you're low on mana. You use it, and you get mana recovered per your missing mana, so 9% of your missing mana. So that's a really strong skill to get early on with it. And then finally, when you finally level it up to 20, I like to come over here to Slayer of the Big Prey. This will basically just have all of this direct damage that's done to high health enemies be applied to bosses and rares for the duration of it attacking, and this damage bonus will apply, and this is like an emphasis on boss damage, so this is going to be going on during bosses, so it just increases the damage of Featherstorm by quite a lot. And then with Dive Bomb, this is going to cause a lot of damage, has a low cooldown, and we are speccing it to reduce the mana cost, so it should cost either low mana or no mana, depending on how many points you invest in the mana cost here. But the main thing we want here is it's going to help us do more crits, so it's going to apply crit vulnerability, and then we also get like increased crit depending on how many enemies the Dive Bomb hits. So that's really good for like big mobs and big packs. And then with Explosive Trap, it has synergy because you're going to be throwing traps out that don't necessarily hit like a single target enemy, but with this, the single target enemy just has to be near the trap. It'll explode and then do damage to the single target enemy. So this is really good synergy with your traps that don't explode on single target, like boss fights and whatnot. It will explode for them and do a bunch of damage. And then we have just free armor shred from this Featherfall. This is like a like before the Falcon actually hits the ground, like arrows will fall from the sky and do this attack here. So moving on to passives, for the rogue tree, I basically just wanted to get dexterity and health here, and then of course get these 5 points in agility and evasion, because these are just, I think that every rogue should have these nodes here, really, really strong, and then just 1 point there to get up to 20. And then going into the Falconer tree, early on, this is an important node to help maintain your mana. So it's still in the tree. You know, I don't know how strong it is, but for me personally, this build feels very mana heavy. You're going to be using a lot of it. So the key is to get a lot of dodge chance via the Dust Shroud on Trap Explosion. Have a lot of dodge on your gear, but having a high dodge is important in order to really get the value out of this node. But like I said early on, getting 5 mana per dodge, that's going to be a good portion of your mana pool. So it is helpful to have this to sustain your mana, and it gives you increased mana regen, which is awesome. Basically a free implicit of mana regen. And then just basically coming through, getting the chance to gain haste, more damage with haste, very good synergy with the previous rogue skills I just talked, or rogue passives I just talked about. Agile Hunt here is really awesome because Falcon throwing damage will scale with our dexterity, so that's really important to scale the minion damage. To combine that with the dexterity that we're already doing. Getting 5 points into this, you can max this out eventually because it's just a good strong node. 5 points here for the added throwing damage conversion to Falcon, just getting more throwing damage added as melee damage and throwing damage to the Falcon, so this is really strong. That's why getting like flat throwing is like really strong on your gear as well. And then just basically getting every single node that gives us a good threshold value, like this one here, when you're using a one-handed weapon, which we'll be doing, and then block effectiveness per dexterity. So dexterity stacking is basically how we're going to build this build. Coming down here and getting evasion tactics, really strong. And then one of the strongest nodes, I think, Stymphalian Feathers. Basically just capitalizing on our dexterity stacking by getting armor with our dex, and then increased armor on Falcon hit, so just getting % armor increase, really strong. Tailwind, incredibly strong defensive node that you definitely need to get full 6 points into this eventually. Depending on how much crit avoidance you need, you can either put points into this or take them out. I currently need full 7 here, but as you get more crit avoidance on your gear, or whatever crit avoidance you choose to build on your gear, you can take points out of here and put them into areas like Tailwind, or even max this out. Strike Their Flank is really strong too for getting more damage per slow, because we are doing a lot of slows in this build. So Finesse Them is a really strong node, and as you're building your character, you can rely on it to get your crit cap your crit avoidance cap, and then as you get more crit avoidance on your gear, or in a blessing or what have you, you can take points out of this and put them into damage or into Tailwind, for example, which is going to be really effective. But early on, this is going to be really helpful to make sure that you get your crit avoidance capped by the time you start monoliths. So yeah, I mean, the passive tree kind of speaks for itself. You can take a look at other passive nodes and see if you like them, because there are other nodes that offer things that are helpful to this build. Not necessarily this one. This one does not, unfortunately. But if you were using decoy with this build, this node might be better for you to pick up. But anyway, take a look at the nodes. I think the ones on the top are kind of the ones we want to stick to for this build. But familiarize yourself with the tree, and yeah. Anyway, the full build guide the full last Epoch tools guide will be in the link of the video here. So yeah, I'll close it out by showing some gameplay footage of the build, so you can kind of get an idea of how it plays. This is my gear as of right now. It's not min-maxed at all, but at least have 1k health, as high as resistances as possible. And then I have 100% crit avoid. So those are all the kind of the 3 essential things you need when heading into monolith farming. So this has a nice damage leech, which is really awesome to have. It's, I think, my only source of leech right now, so that's really important. Getting increased health everywhere you can is really important. Getting as much critical strike chance is going to be really important for this build, because we are kind of low on it right now, and I really need to get some more in order to scale my damage. But yeah, just basically trying to get mana regen in where I can as well. The weapon for this build is really weird. Getting like a dagger, like a Chris dagger like this with increased crit chance instead of like parry chance would be really great. And then shred armor and then ignite is not very good, but for leveling and whatever, it's fine for now. But I'd rather get something else there that's a little bit more beneficial for the build that's more hit-based damage scaling. And then overall just trying to get as much throwing damage on my pieces as possible, trying to get as much fire damage while keeping my resistances capped is very important. The trick of it though is you do want to get dexterity. Like dexterity is king in this build, so dex stacking. So clearly like a lot of my pieces don't have dex on them, so that's something I need to fix as soon as possible, and just try to get dex on every single prefix I can. Alright travelers, thank you so much for checking out this guide for this Falconer build. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to comment if you have any questions, like the video if you liked it, and please do subscribe to the channel because it helps immensely. I'm trying to grow this channel over the next couple years, and I plan to keep on releasing more Last Epoch videos specifically for hardcore, guides, at least a few a month, and then also talk about various topics to help you survive in Eterra. So I just wanted to thank you again for supporting my channel, and a special thank you to my wonderful fiance who helped support me by supporting my hobby and my dream of growing this YouTube channel, and just wanted to thank her for all of her support. So anyway, thanks a lot travelers, and good luck in Eterra. I just wanted to talk a little bit about leveling. So leveling this build, I would recommend just doing whatever until you get Acid Flask, and then once you get Acid Flask, use that in the early level, I think it's, 5 to 15 or 20 or what have you. In this clip here, I think I'm around level 20, and once you get Explosive Trap, then you can switch to it for the majority of your damage. However, do be wary because as you can see, this is a very heavy mana build, especially in the beginning of the game. So definitely keep Acid Flask on your skill bar while you're leveling. I kept it on my skill bar until level 40, I think at least, just because there will be times where you run out of mana, and Acid Flask you can pretty much just throw it constantly while consistently like maintaining your mana pool. So whatever really feels good to you leveling, you're welcome to do it. You won't really switch over to the full trebuchet, sort of 2 trap throwing at a time, full mana sustain setup until around level 30 to 40-ish. So don't stress too badly, but again, my recommendation is to use Acid Flask to use in the beginning of the game, and then transition into Explosive Trap, and then just work on things that are going to increase your mana